Hi, I'm here to do the critique of Eric and Chun's work. I'm going to start with Eric, and we're going to start on the first assignment that had the 6 diagram circles. So, starting with that, Eric used the guide, the questionnaire guide, and I thought that was really a good starting point. Um, that kind of allows you to stay on task on how we're reviewing the document and if the assignment met all the criteria. And so, with looking at that, one of the first questions was are the observations clearly focused? And I know Eric had said yes, and I would disagree with that. I'm not sure if they were clearly focused. The diagrams did put some topics, the circle diagrams, and I did like the colors. But one of the things Eric noted was there was no uh, verse or chapter mentioned, and I agree with that. We're not sure where she's pulling these from or um, if you could validate kind of the thought process and tie it back to the book. It also flowed right into repetition and big ideas, and those didn't kind of tie into the first page with the circle diagram, so it's not a clear transition, or it's not pulling from the first one and then kind of building. So they're not really building on each other. They're just um, complete different thoughts. And so I would think that, that's where I would say wasn't clearly focused. It did leave out some major themes. I think that was one of all the key issues addressed or left undressed. If you go to the end, you can see the buildup really leads to the suffering, and that is really the key issue that's addressed in this assignment. And I believe there is some key issues such as obedience, love, submission. I would also agree that Eric had noted that um, she did a good job on the deep dive, the suffering, and using the chapter and verse and the Greek word, and gave the definition of it, but still she could have tied it to the big picture, and not just kind of gave us a definition, but gave a little more context to it and how that tied into the book. The next thing was the big picture overview, and that felt like a whole new document again. It wasn't building on the other two. Well, I didn't feel like it was building. So it was good information overall. This assignment had a lot of good information. Some of the things that Chan had said about it was that it was a very broad, um, and it did come on that last page. I think it was a really good job where it was narrowed down and gave a little summary. And so it would have been nice to see the suffering built from kind of the first page and then a little more deeper and deeper with the context. So overall, there was a lot of information on the observations, which is great because that's what observations are for. I think Chan and Eric both said that they felt overall it was a good effort. Um, but a few more things could have been addressed. Chun noted that it would have been nice to see a little more of the obedience and the submission and the assignment. And so I would agree with that. Out of the questions, I think that the assignment did have a meaningful engagement. There was a lot of information. So the observations demonstrate purposeful analysis. So overall, as a whole, I think it was very purposeful. And one of the things that Eric had noted was he felt that there could have been a little deeper with like a subject verb relationship. And yes, this is for Greek class, so that could have been a little bit a deeper analysis. I'm not sure if I'm going to add that in mine, but that is a good takeaway. And if I had to take something away, I do like the different categories. I just think in mine, I would try to get it to flow a little bit better. So that's the first assignment. Let's move on to the second assignment. The second assignment I thought was very clear and structured, but it did lack a lot of information. And that both Eric and Chun felt that it was missing a lot of the categories on the observations. It was a great graph. It was very easy to read. It flowed nicely, but it was just too broad. It lacked, it could have had a lot more detail. It did have the verse and the chapters, which was great, but it was just very broad. And it did not, it missed a lot of the categories off the questions. So one of them was, do the observations demonstrate purposeful analysis of the book? I would say it didn't. And I know Chun said that he could have used a lot more examples. He could have did a lot more. He just kind of summarized the themes. There wasn't clear focus on what the key issues were because it was just like an overall summary. And there was quite a few themes on the graph, and then it just kind of summarized, almost like it just summarized the chapters as they went along. It kind of told us what the chapters were about, but didn't give us an overall view of what the book was about. And that's really what we were looking for. What we felt the overall book was telling us. What was Peter trying to tell us? Was it just suffering, as the first assignment suggested, or was it all three? I think it was really obedience, love, and in the midst of all that, we will encounter suffering versus this life is just for suffering. I think suffering is just a byproduct of the broken world that we live in, but it's the obedience and the love that is our responsibility, what we're tasked to. So I think that there was a lot of the questions, and Eric had mentioned that he could have went a lot deeper, and Chun had agreed that he could have went deeper and it showed more uh, focus on how we should treat others, or just a deeper on the observation levels, not a summary, but exactly what is Peter telling us and kind of walk us through that process. So that is my critique of the critiques. And yeah, thank you guys.